Hey everyone, this is Steve with Collider, and I am once again here at our South by Southwest studio to talk with the fine folks behind Star Trek Discovery. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I've seen the first 4 episodes. The only thing I'm mad about is I don't have more to watch. So F you. You know what I mean? Let me start.
We did that on purpose.
Right.
We were hoping to make you angry before you interviewed us.
Yeah.
Right. How many episodes is the final season?
10.
And how does that number get determined? Is it the studio for each Trek show? Is it the studio saying this is the number we want?
Yeah, I think they're only making 8 to 10 shows of all shows, not just Trek shows from this point forward.
You're talking about for Paramount Plus?
For Paramount Plus, yes. That's my understanding.
So I'm very curious. So you finish the last season, you find out you're going to get to do another season. Take me behind the scenes in terms of what is the discussion like in terms of what is going to be our next season? What's the arc we're going for? Like, how does that all work behind the scenes?
Well, we always start with our characters and where did they end last season? Where do we want them to go this season? In those kinds of discussions, a lot of things start to come out thematically in terms of things that feel thematically resonant across those different characters, the things that we want to explore. And in the midst of all of that, we are also figuring out the big ideas for the season. So, thematically, this season, we're exploring questions of purpose and meaning, which felt like a natural extension coming off of the DMA and out of COVID and the season 4 stuff. What is next for our characters? That felt like an organic place to go. And just in the midst of talking about all of that, it kind of organically leads to questions of who are the antagonists for the season? What is the thing that our heroes are doing this season? Coming into season 5, we knew that we wanted to do a bit of a tonal shift. We wanted to have lead with a bit more action, adventure, and make it slightly lighter than earlier seasons. So that's where the idea of a quest came from. And those are organic conversations that all feed into one another as we're figuring out what we want the season to look like. And we really do a lot of work up front, breaking out the high level of what the season will be before we start diving into the individual episodes.
So this season connects to Star Trek: The Next Generation, which of course makes me very happy. But how much when you do something like that, who ultimately, how did that come about? And ultimately, who makes the decision? Like, you're allowed to do this? Is it you? Is it the studio? Like, where? You know what I mean? Like, how does that decision get figured out?
Well, in terms of where it comes from, and then I assume this will be after it airs, so we won't be spoiling anything great. We had actually been interested in The Chase, just the episode The Chase, because it's something that had stuck with many of us from TNG, just because it has such big ideas, big things that it's exploring. Where does life come from? And it was this single episode that explores these big things and then kind of moves on to the next episode. And it kind of lends itself to so many questions of, well, what happened? And what do we do then? So we were actually looking at that and considering folding some of that into season 4. But as we got into season 4, we realized with the 10C, there was just so much story. It was too much happening and it didn't quite feel organic. When we came into season 5 and started looking at where our characters were and where they were going to go over the course of the season and what Burnham was exploring with respect to meaning and what's next and all of that, it really felt like that progenitor story as a quest felt like the perfect place to live thematically. And then in terms of who allows us to do that, we talk about it and Alex says yes. And then I don't know, do people above and beyond that?
No. There's always a big conversation about whether or not that's something in canon. What you never ever sorry that's not good for camera. What you never want to do is just throw in an Easter egg to throw it in with no real reason. That is I think the worst mistake, because it starts to feel like fan service and has the exact opposite effect of what you want. In this particular case, it's the root of the season, and it sets the season forward, and it asks a very fundamental question that it becomes the question that we set out to answer for the season. So from that perspective, it was the right choice.
So I am curious. At the studio, how does it actually work? I'm just being stupid, but obviously you are near the top of the food chain on Star Trek. How does it work in terms of like, who do you talk to at Paramount Plus in terms of like working out budgets or working out what they want for Star Trek, which you then do? Like, how is that structure figured out?
It's a very, it's a communal conversation, meaning I talked to the head of the studio, David Staff, who's been incredibly supportive, from the beginning, from Discovery's launch. And then we go and we talk to the Paramount Plus folks and we tell them, like, here's what we're thinking. In order to get to this show, we're going to need to start planning really 2 years ahead, which means you have to start putting things in development. It's actually a small group of people. And then once you figure out what show everybody wants to make, then it becomes a question of what it costs to make it.
How does it work in terms of, obviously you get I'm assuming you have a number for the budget for all 10 episodes. So how does it work in terms of figuring out where and when you want to deploy additional resources, knowing you can only spend so much here and there?
I think it depends on the individual episode. So, for example, our premieres and finales have always tended to be a little bit bigger than pattern. Excuse me. We have a pattern budget, which is the number that we want to hit for any given episode. Because our premieres and finales are typically larger, because we want to launch with a bang and end with a bang, we just know that if we go over the pattern in the episode or in a particular area of the episode, that in later episodes we're going to need to make that up. So it's really a matter of just making sure that we are diligent about that and keeping track along the way, so that by the end of the season, we have hit our pattern for all of the episodes, even if one or more went over.
How much in the writer's room are you thinking it would be great because we want to go effing big in like 2 episodes? We really need a flashlight episode in episode 6. You know what I mean? Like that way we can take that money and use it somewhere else.
We're very thoughtful about that. We always know, for example, going into any season, I don't even need to know what the season is about to know that our premiere and our finale are probably going to be bigger, because that's just how we tend to do it. So we always go in kind of knowing that. Once we start getting budget information, we get a sense of how much bigger the premiere will be. And then we just kind of know, here's how much we have to make up along the way. And we're diligent about making sure that if we need to do a bottle episode, we do a bottle episode.
Flashlights.
We do flashlights. No one gets to change their costumes suddenly.
No, I mean, because I watch listen, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and you watch Next Generation, and every season there's a flashlight episode or something that requires just sitting in one stage, just them talking. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you know that the money's going to be deployed somewhere else. Yeah.
No, it's an essential part of it. In fact, I think from a dramatic perspective, it's great because it forces you to tell stories that's just focused on character, nothing else. If you say, like, sorry, you don't get any explosions this episode, you don't get anything, any of the bells and whistles, you just have to write people in a room, it forces your brain into a different space than you're usually in, which is a great thing for if you're doing it right, it's a great thing for character.
If you could only watch one TV show for the rest of your life, what TV show would it be and why? Explosion.
I might say The Twilight Zone, because it's one of those shows where all of the episodes, there are different tonal elements in all the episodes. It did such a wonderful job of reflecting what was happening in society at times. It's an incredible mix of character work and genre and just profound questions that it would explore. I remember growing up on that and just loving it. And every Thanksgiving they would have Twilight Zone marathons, and I would just sit and watch the Twilight Zone for hours and hours on end. I think I have the Twilight Zone companion at home. I think it's really wonderful, compact storytelling, and I think it endures for a reason.
It also led to where you're sitting.
That too. I mean, I don't think you can overlook the importance of that show in all of these.
100%. What about you?
Twin Peaks for me, which is weirdly very Twilight Zone adjacent, but Twin Peaks made me want to make television. It just changed my understanding of what television could be. And I remember seeing the premiere of the episode at a screening at LACMA when I was growing up. I was in high school, and I didn't understand what I was watching, because at that point television was cops, doctors, lawyers, right? And so you see that show and he's just blowing up everything you understand about TV. And it is endlessly entertaining to me. And the more you watch it, the more you begin to see that it's a case study in all the things that should be done on television, and then all the things that shouldn't be done on television when networks come in and start mandating, certain things that sort of break the rules that was fundamentally so wonderful about an idea. So I just think it's an amazing, amazing piece of art.
I think also a lot of people don't realize the context of time of when it was on. Just like you said.
People don't get it.
We
had actually, it was funny, we had a whole conversation this week in the writer's room about it, because a lot of the writer's assistants who are of a totally different generation just had no frame of reference for Twin Peaks. And so one of the writer's assistants asked, like, why should I watch this show? Like, what's so special about it? And I said, you got to understand context, which is impossible for you to understand given the fact that you didn't live through it. But there was nothing like that had ever existed. It was the first thing ever. And every show that you love now, and you can name 20, 30 of them. And it was funny because we had just finished season 4 of True Detective. I said, there is no season 4 of True Detective without Twin Peaks. It doesn't exist. Yep. And that just goes, I mean, I can name 10 shows right now that don't exist without Twin Peaks. And so I think when he saw that, he went, oh my God, that's right. I didn't understand it.
I apologize. I'm running out of time. And as the person near the focal point of Star Trek, I do have a few individual questions for you, if you don't mind. Sure. So I just like Discovery. I'm a big fan of Strange New Worlds. I know you're filming season 3. How's that going?
It's going great.
Anything you want to tease?
No.
Got it. So I am also a fan of Lower Decks. I think that Mike does such a great job with that. Do you know if Paramount's planning on renewing that? Do you know if it's near its end of its run? What can you say?
I don't. What I can tell you is that I think we've had 5 amazing seasons, and if it's 5 amazing seasons, then that's amazing.
I agree.
The fact is that 5 seasons of anything in the streaming universe is almost unheard of at this point. It's been such a delightful show. Mike, the whole staff, everybody on it, amazing. Tawny Newsome, obviously who plays Mariner on the show, is also in our Starfleet writers' room. And so it feels like the spirit of that show has somehow also migrated into Starfleet in some way. But no, if this turns out to be our last season, I think we will all walk out heads high.
Speaking of Starfleet Academy, not like I wasn't going to ask about it. Have you started casting?
We haven't started casting the kids.
Right. So, got it. Have you revealed when it takes place on the Star Trek timeline?
Not to you, no.
Right, exactly.
Actually, to everyone but you.
Right, 100%. So is it going to be another 10-episode show?
Yeah.
Is it like a 6-month shoot, 9-month shoot?
Yeah, it'll be a 6-month shoot. But, you got to remember that it could end up not airing till 26 is the truth. But at this point, we don't know. Just building the sets alone is a massive endeavor. Then 6 months of shooting, and then 6 to 8 months of post. And, what I was if you recall, there was all this noise around season 1 and season 2 of Discovery because the streaming service had never really, they were not used to they were like, oh, it's a turnaround on a cop show. And we're like, no, you don't understand. It's 8 months of visual effects turnaround, and we're not going to rush that. So it'll come out, but it'll come out when it's done. One
of the main issues, and I talk about this with everyone at every streamer, I don't understand how they don't keep writers' rooms going all the time, because it's like, get the scripts ready so at least if they greenlight, you can try to go as soon as possible.
We're actually starting to have that conversation now. There's a million reasons to do it. It's not just that it keeps things fresh, but it also saves an enormous amount of money for your budget.
100, absolutely. That's why, like with Netflix, they just renewed Avatar for 2 seasons. It's great because they can, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, you're sitting there holding stages and you're paying for those stages and nothing's happening in them for, sometimes it takes 4 to 6 months to renew a show. And that's the case that we've been making is if you take 4 to 6 months, that's just money off the screen and you're burning money. So, and everybody hears it, like everybody understands. There's no debate about it.
What can you tease in terms of, I know you haven't cast the kids, how many kid characters or what can you tease about the cast of like the protagonists on the show?
So this is my first official Starfleet Academy question. There's a lot of different kids from a lot of different places. And some of them want to be there. Some of them don't want to be there. it's going to be, I think, a fundamental reinforcement of all the things that we love about Starfleet in general. But it's very interesting because, you always want to ask yourself, why this show now? And I think that one of the big things that certainly my 17-year-old son is facing, which is a kind of a fundamental Star Trek question, is how did we get here? How has this generation inherited the mistakes from previous generations? And what are we going to do to fix it to build that optimistic future that is Roddenberry's essential vision? And that is very much going to be at the heart of Starfleet Academy.
One of the reasons why I'm excited for the show is because Star Trek cannot exist with just aiming at the older fans. You have to bring in new people. One of the reasons why Prodigy is great. One of the reasons why I'm looking forward to Academy, because you can go after maybe 15 to 19-year-olds. So do you know what I mean? Is that?
I do. And so here's the thing. I couldn't agree with you more, but I will also say, and I'm always very vocal about this with the studio, you can't do that to the exclusion of OG fans. Sure. You have to make sure that you are also pleasing people who've been around and who are diehard TOS fans and, diehard Next Gen fans and whatever iteration of Trek is yours. You cannot alienate those people. You actually also have to invite them to the tent. So the challenge is, how do you do that while also bringing in Trek to a new generation of fans that has no experience with those shows, has never watched those shows, right? So you need to make a show that you can drop into if you don't know anything about Star Trek, but also a show that you get a tremendous amount out of if you have all that canonical history.
One of the things about the Academy is that, you only go to the Star Trek Academy for so many years. So is it one of these things where hypothetically you get a 3 or 4 season, you get to run for 4 seasons. Do you see it that each season you would essentially be bringing in new people and people would be graduating? Or are you aiming for whatever amount of year? You see what I mean?
Of course I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Because we talk about it every day. Without spoiling anything, what I will tell you is that I think the structure and the construction of the show is going to allow for both of those things to happen.
Okay. I'm like trying to see what can I ask as a follow-up to that. No, but listen, I appreciate you indulging me on that. And I'm really excited to see. So do you know when you're going to announce cast or no?
It'll be a while. We haven't actually started the casting process, is the truth. We've started generally for some of the adult characters, but we haven't even started with the kids. So
I just want to know, I think that you should just leave this interview by ending it with telling us when it takes place.
No.
Because that'll tell me a lot. Well, listen, I really appreciate you getting into it. I really am looking forward to the final 6 episodes and the series finale. And I look forward to talking spoilers at some point in the future. Thank you both so much for coming in.
Thank you.
And, have a great South by.
Thank you.
You too.
You too.